coffee.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee with the Queens. Today we are talking about how to get sponsorship and brand deals. So if you've got events coming up, you do not want to miss the show. We have an excellent guest today, so stick with us.
Welcome to Coffee with the Queens, empowering you to grow and protect your cash credit castle and kingdom. Have you ever heard the phrase, get your ducks in a row, and you feel like you haven't done that? We share learned lessons and practical advice to help guide you to a life of financial freedom. Empowerment is key, so grab your coffee and crown and let's get to it.
Take it away, Queen Tammy.
Morning.
Good morning,
Yep.
everyone.
We're
How
ready.
are you? Wow, it's such a beautiful day, and I'm so glad I have some warmth in here. It's chilly.
Oh,
Is it like 70 for you? I'm just kidding. I actually know that it is cold in California right
San
now.
Diego. Nice.
Right?
No, actually, it's beautiful here in the Bay Area. It's spectacular weather. It really is.
Wow.
So
Nice.
We're still
Who
a
has
little gray.
snow? Tammy, you have snow, right?
All the snow is gone, but we're still
Aw.
just a little gray. We're just, in the 40s and a little gray and a little chilly, but
And Sandra, you have pollen all over now, huh?
Yeah, we look like we're snowed because it's just yellow with pollen. It's been fun. Don't come to Austin right now if you have allergies. Don't do it.
Don't do
oh
it.
my gosh.
But I'm excited about the show today. I am because I have personal experience with this. With this woman today. Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you, so we talked about this. We're talking about sponsorship and brand deals. And, we, along with many of our friends and other entrepreneurs, are all over YouTube these days. All our events are online. Things are changing in this, really dynamic topic and way to get sponsors for events and brands. So this is such a great topic today. So just a quick question to you ladies, what has been your experience in going to different events, and where do you see sponsorships coming in if you've had your own, what's been successful for you? What have you seen other events do in getting sponsors?
I can tell you that they've been a lifesaver for me. I mean, way back in the beginning when I first started doing live events, and then I had programs, and I ran into our guest that we have today. I've known her a long time, and she opened up possibilities for my business that I couldn't have even imagined at the time, because I've heard that the main reason that businesses fail is due to a lack of resources. And the most common resource that is lacking is revenue. It's funds, it's operating capital. And so when you're throwing an event, to be able to have a sponsor come in and extend those resources for you, you can do so much more. Plus, if you're able to actually support each other, if that sponsor is getting help by you, then it's a great mutual agreement. And so at first I didn't understand sponsorship. I thought I had to be at a different level to get sponsorship. I'm sure she's going to cover all of this, but it really helped me to create very quickly my first several 3-day long conferences, all in my name, which was terrifying, but I was able to give people a really good experience because of the opportunity to bring in sponsors. So I'm a big fan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I actually put in-person summits together too. In fact, I have the CEO Business Summit. I'm going on my 3rd year now. And the first year that I did it, it was challenging. I even had 12 speakers that were helping out and getting out there. And we were doing it old school. We had packets. We walked the streets. We really did. And so we went into restaurants and stores and banks and talked to the management and told them what we were doing and looking for sponsorship. I got 1 or 2, and that's it. It was challenging. I don't know what we were doing wrong. I thought we were doing everything right by doing it and taking sponsor package. I was even sending them out all over online too. It was tough. Now, Angel, my husband, has a nonprofit, and I find it a little bit easier because we could just walk into Home Depot and say, hey, would you like to sponsor the flowers for, this CEO Summit coming up? It's nonprofit, and the proceeds are going to that. It's like, wow, it was much easier to get things that way. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And so I am so excited for today because I want to know, right? I want to know how you actually did it. And what's the difference between if you have a nonprofit and for-profit?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. How about you, Kathy? What's been your experience?
Well, I guess I come from the other space, which is I have participated where people actually sponsored me, if that's the right word. So one of the big pluses for my product, How to Avoid Probate, is I was sponsored by this group called Reimagine Life. And they sponsored an event all over San Francisco. And then all of us who got invited had their umbrella of a sponsorship. And that gave us huge reach and huge influence. Like I couldn't have called up a senior home and said, hey, I want to come do a talk. They say, who are you and what are you? But as soon as that sponsor was Reimagine Life, it's like, when do you want to come?
So that's the kind of,
and so that was my power of sponsor. And then in the old world, when I was in the tax business and every year we sent out flyers, people would pay lots of money to put their ads in our flyers if they had related products to the tax business. So that's my experience with sponsorship.
that's interesting. Last year and many years before 2020, we were going to so many events before many of them were online. And traditionally, like digital marketer and events like that, we would see people with booths, right? So they would have a booth at the show. They would have inserts, they would be speakers at the event. And so that's been sort of my biggest experience. But one of the most interesting ones was Alex Becker had an event, I think, a few years back. And when you bought the ticket, he actually issued you like 40 of his books that the event was based on his book. So I got 40 books delivered to my house, which was really interesting. And then I went on to speak at different events and take those books and gave them, as gifts to the audience on all these books. So it just kept going and going and going. So sometimes you can be your own sponsor and keep it going. So just really interesting ways to think of sponsorship. So I'm really interested to dive in today about all the different things.
Well, speaking of sponsors, before we go any further, before we go any further, I want to invite those that are watching this either live or if you're watching it after we're done, please, if this is beneficial, this content to you, please share, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, because that is actually what helps us to determine how we're going to be moving forward so we can best serve you. And we love to have your comments. So the more you comment, the more chances you get to actually get some free stuff. So put some stuff in the comments for us. And I also want to say that today is sponsored by a very special program. So I don't know about you, but the COVID pounds that everybody jokes about, hey, they are real, okay? They're real. So you're trying to put on the spring clothes from last year and we're going, wow, man, these must have shrunk in the wash. Like, no. Yeah. So I think that so many of us may be getting really focused on trying to get in shape and looking for something that is going to be fun and different and just really help us to get our bodies sculpted and get back in shape, get those COVID pounds off. So I think since it's time, we have just enough time before summer to take advantage of this. So Haley here is offering her exclusive course, Sculpt a Brand New You, in 90 days. Figure 90 days from now, you're going to be set for the summer. Okay. This is a multicultural inspired fitness curriculum package. Nuvo is a dance inspired fitness program that is founded on dance styles from around the world. As you know, our Sohaila has danced around the world for royalty. I mean, it's amazing what she's done. So with the enhancement of traditional Middle Eastern and folkloric dance moves, you are going to be able to get those COVID pounds off and feel fantastic. So we're going to have the link for you here. It's also going to be in the comments for the show. So take a look at that. And in 90 days, you will have a brand new you. I'm doing it.
Yay.
I'm doing it.
Awesome.
I'm doing it. We need it. So let's bring on our guests, because we have teased you there that are watching way long enough. So Linda Hollander has been featured by INC magazine as the leading expert on corporate sponsorship, and she teaches entrepreneurs about how to tap into the awesome power of corporate sponsors. She's the author of the #1 bestseller, Corporate Sponsorship in 3 Easy Steps, and founder of the Sponsor Secrets Seminar, which I highly recommend. She is also the CEO of Sponsor Concierge, and her sponsors include Microsoft, Epson, Wells Fargo, Dun & Bradstreet, FedEx, American Airlines, Staples, HealthNut, you guys getting jealous and eager to learn how you can get these guys too. Marriott, wait, there's more. IBM and Walmart. Wow. Al Lappin Jr., the founder of IHOP Restaurants, says, if your goal is to be a success, Linda Hollander has paved the way for you. Wow. So in that case, let's bring the lady on. Everybody, Linda Hollander.
Hi.
Hi, gorgeous.
Hey.
Hi. Great to be here with the queens.
Thank you. Thank
We're
you.
so glad that you're here. We're probably going to be just like wanting you to come back 3 and 4 times with how excited we've been, leading up to the show. I want to tell you, what in your background led you to do what you do now? What led you to teaching sponsorship?
Well, what led me to teaching sponsorship was that I wanted to do an event. And I know you were talking about events, and all of you have done events, been to events. Basically, I started a business, and starting that business got me out of the poverty trap. It got me out of an abusive relationship. I started it with my best friend. So I'm really into the girl power that you're putting out there. My best friend Cheryl and I met when we were 13 years old at recess. And we said, if we do anything together when we grow up, it'll be absolutely phenomenal. So we started a business together, and basically it got me out of my little rent-controlled apartment. I was able to buy my first home as a single woman. I fired my boss. I was in a very abrasive relationship with him, a toxic work situation. I was able to travel the world, and I dumped the abusive guy that I was dating, all because of this business. And what I loved doing in the business is, when women come to the business, they don't just do business with you. I knew everything about them. And they would say, Linda, how do I do sales? How do I do marketing? So I wanted to create a women's small business expo. But then I looked at the cost of it because it was all about live events at the time.
Yes.
And oh my God, to put a first-rate event on like I wanted to do, it was really cash intensive. So that's when I found out about sponsors, that they will fund your events. They'll fund your business if you want to speak, if you want to write books, if you have a nonprofit. You were talking about that earlier. And social influencers. I'm working with a lot of social influencers. So that's how I got started in the world of sponsorship. And my first sponsors were Bank of America, Walmart, and IBM. I had never done an event in my life. I had no following. Nobody knew who the heck I was except my brother-in-law and my cat. That was about it. But I got these sponsors, and then everybody said, how are you getting these sponsors? And I said, well, you could do it. You could sell them on concept. And I was, just working from home at the time. And so that's what I teach now. And that's what I cannot wait to talk to you about today.
So you have these big people, as sponsors. Did you just literally just walk in and say, hey, I'm doing an event. Would you like to sponsor me? I mean, what are sponsors looking for?
Well, I actually did. My first sponsor was Bank of America because Sandra knows this. We kind of met when I'm in Los Angeles. I know she's out of Los Angeles now, but in Los Angeles, I mean, what do you think of a traffic jam, right? So I look up at a billboard while I'm in a traffic jam, and it's Bank of America. And I said, oh my God, what if that could be my sponsor? And all I had was an idea in my head. I didn't know if people would come to my event. I didn't know if it had legs, if it would last. And you know what I did? And you're going to relate to this, ladies. I self-sabotaged, and I said, I'm going to make a fool out of myself. They're going to reject me. I don't want any part of it. And I buried the idea for 2 weeks. But then what I did was I did call them, and I got to the guy who could greenlight it, brought my proposal to him, and he said, yes, we'll sponsor you. And then the first deal was a 5-figure deal. And I wanted to scream, but I'm in a fancy bank building. By the way, wearing the one good suit I had, bringing my clunker car there, parking it 2 blocks down. So I said, okay, thank you so much. I wiped my hand on my suit because I was so nervous. And then when I got back to the car, I did the happy dance. There's nothing like the feeling of getting your first sponsor. And then one sponsor leads to another.
Oh, wow. And so when you have these sponsor packets now, did you know what to write in that? Or you just wrote it and said, okay, I'm just going to ask for a certain amount?
I actually hired a company to help me write my first sponsor proposal because I didn't know anything at the time. And the proposal is so important. That's how sponsors make their funding decisions. So I would definitely hire a professional if you're just starting out, if you really don't know what goes into that proposal.
True. Yeah.
So I have a question. So I've done, I bought programs on like radio and television. And in that case, if I was looking for a sponsor, I knew what to charge because I have measured demographics, or I have a time slot they pay for, and they have traditional dollars there. How do you charge? How do you decide what to charge these sponsors? Is there like a formula? Is there something you could share?
There is a formula, and some of it is just art. And what I like my clients to get, and most of them do, is $10,000 to $100,000 per year. Now, if you're doing a show, don't just charge them for, X number of episodes or anything. Give them year-round benefits. And that's really what's going on post-pandemic, is that sponsors want benefits all year long, because sponsorship is not as event-focused as it was at one time. So the more interactive the benefits, the more you can charge. So the low-level benefits are what everybody thinks of as sponsorship, placing a logo on a website, signage, etc. Then you move up to engagement opportunities, which include contests and social media, which is a two-way exchange, email marketing, videos, etc. And then at the highest level, you have media, and then there's something called naming rights. Now, here in Los Angeles, we have Staples Center. That's a naming rights deal, but you could also have a naming rights sponsor. You could be presented by XYZ company.
But how do we prove that benefit in the world of the internet, where there's no Nielsen keeping track of the results that they pay for in traditional TV or radio?
Some benefits are tangible and some are intangible. Some things you can prove, like you could prove how many clicks and how many likes and how many unique page visits. Something not, because of the internet. But there's things that are intangibles, like creating goodwill. And I told you my first sponsor was a bank sponsor. Since Bank of America, I've gotten Citibank and Wells Fargo, and I love bank sponsors. Now, bank sponsors are great because that's where the money is, and banks need to be brand friendly. Nobody loves their bank. Nobody raves about their bank. They do things that make our blood boil, right? So they want to create goodwill. They want to be friendly to their consumers, and that you cannot measure.
That's interesting. Today, so Haley was talking about for-profit versus nonprofit. Today, there's the trending, B Corp, which incorporates the not-for-profit element that brands are doing. And millennials are most often buying 90% more willing to buy a product or something from a brand that does have a nonprofit element to it or a giving element to it. So what is the difference when you're looking for sponsorship, in a for-profit versus nonprofit?
Okay. Well, first of all, you don't have to be a nonprofit to get sponsors. A lot of people think that you do, and that's kind of a myth out there, because nonprofits, that's a real visible thing in sponsorships. If you are a for-profit business, and I've been a for-profit for over 20 years, if you're a for-profit, get a charitable partner. And I think one of you were talking about that. Get an organization where you donate part of the proceeds. Yes. Here's what nonprofits want. They want donations, and everybody thinks all they want is money, but some of them want exposure. So you can give them exposure, and that's very, very valuable. So that's the way to work it. So you get a nonprofit partner. It used to be a nice thing. Now it's a necessary thing. And this is an outgrowth of COVID, that companies really want to show how they're giving back to the community.
And they actually want to see something in real life, right? I mean, they don't just want to hearsay. They want to say, okay, show me that it's going to that nonprofit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. They'll want to see that. Just like you said, this is so important to the millennial market, because in deciding where they want to work, they do research. Hey, what's the social responsibility of this company? And do they just say it, or do they really, walk the walk and talk the talk?
Now, when you have a sponsor for an event, it used to be maybe a yearly event or a quarterly event, and you'd love to bring those sponsors back. Well, it's the same thing here. If you have a sponsor for an entire year, you'd love for them to renew. What's a secret to getting them to renew?
The secret is relationship. A lot of people get sponsorship money. We recommend a 1-year contract with your sponsor. So a lot of people get that sponsorship money, Great. They put it in their bank. They do that happy dance I did earlier. And then the sponsor doesn't hear from them for an entire year until they come back with their handout. And the sponsor's thinking, well, what did you do for me? Why would I give you more money? You do not want that conversation to be in their heads. So you want to send them what's called a fulfillment report, at least quarterly. The fulfillment report, it's not a fancy schmancy thing. It could be one page where you just list what you've done for that sponsor. You document things with photographs and videos and all that. And then there's informal sponsorship relationships. So I had American Airlines as a sponsor, and I did an interview like this, and it was actually in a studio. And then when I got home from the studio, I just wrote a quick email to the lady at American Airlines and said, hey, I just did an interview. The station has like over 75,000 listeners. And she wrote back to me saying, hey, thank you so much. So that's an informal way to have a relationship with your sponsors. They love the touches. They love new information. And American Airlines did renew with me.
So did you mention American Airlines in your interview?
Yes.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yes. Good.
I would think that's important. Yeah.
And
What about
how do you do that? Is it part of your conversation, or do you just bluntly?
It's real hard. Sandra knows this, being in media. It's called bridging, and it's not always easy to mention your sponsor. And don't mention it if it's not important, if it sounds contrived, because that's very inauthentic. It was just something that was, I don't even remember the question that they asked me where I mentioned American Airlines, but I did mention them, and it was pretty organic.
It's something like that, even if it's a story, because you do fly on American Airlines. So you can actually say, and they're one of my sponsors. I'm very grateful. And then you just continue, just like, bam, you just mentioned it before they could say, even notice it, and you're through it, but you've said it. Or,
So,
thanks to my sponsor, I was able to, get here today on time, or whatever it is. Like, you can do a quick little thank you and just squeeze it in. If you just squeeze it in, then that's all they need to have.
So it's like if you're working with Bank of America, do they make choices at the local level, or is there some other process that goes up the line that you need somebody at corporate to decide where that money's allocated?
You ladies are asking amazing questions. That's a great question.
We're making it work.
I always say go to both. Go to the local level and the corporate level. So with banks, all of the banks that I've worked with have been at the local level, and they have really good budgets at the local level.
Yeah.
When I got FedEx as a sponsor, it was with their corporate in Tennessee. So, I worked at the corporate level with FedEx. So unfortunately, there's not a one size fits all answer to that. Every company works a little bit differently. So I say both.
One of the reasons that I think it's important too, right, to leave some space. So if you have something coming up that you're launching, whether it's a book, a workshop, an event, make sure that there's some space for you to get sponsors. Because I've had somebody say to me in an organization that I support, say, hey, we're doing an event in May and it's nearly April and we need to get some sponsors. Oh, right. Am I right? How much time should you give yourself?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people call me and they've got something coming up in 2 weeks and they need sponsors, and I can't do anything for them. It's so frustrating for me because I want to help, but I can't. The more lead time you have, the more successful you're going to be with your sponsors. I recommend 8 months to a year. I know that sounds like a long time, but it's a relationship business. It takes time to really form those relationships with your sponsors. You've got to get your proposal done. You've got to have it reviewed. You may have to deal with the travel schedule. And now that everybody's starting to travel again. So give it enough time.
And so much of content today is like us. I'll call us virtual. How does that change the rules at all in terms of what people are looking to pay for?
I got good news for you. 80% of sponsors will fund virtual events. Cool. Now, here's what you need to do with your virtual events to get sponsors. Okay. You need to give it a long enough lead time, because for some reason people think you don't need to give it the same lead time. It has to be the same lead time, because you have to also create a pent-up demand for your virtual event, and that takes some time too. Emails have to drop, promotions have to happen, etc. Also, don't think of it as an event. Think of it as a series of content communications. So with an event, you've got your pre-marketing, you've got your on-site, and then you've got your post-marketing. So do all of it. And most people are pretty good with on-site. They'll recognize their sponsors. But in pre-marketing, you can include your sponsors. You could do some pre-interviews with your sponsors afterwards, after the event. I know you want to collapse on the couch and just drink wine and chocolate, but that's also the time to promote your sponsors. When I had IBM, we sent out an email after the event saying, hey, thank you so much to IBM. And here's an offer on a laptop. And some people bought the laptop. So that's another time to promote your sponsors.
Yeah.
And would they ever help you promote the event?
Not really.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll help you promote it. But see, what sponsors want is they want you to design the program, give it to them in a gift wrapped bow. Pretty much turnkey, and they just write you the check. A lot of people think, oh, sponsors, they're going to help me with my speaking tour and my book tour. And no, you arrange that. But I think it's great because you design the program.
Now, grants are a form of sponsorship as well, right?
Grants are a little different than sponsorship because grants are a donation, whereas sponsors are marketing. Now, the sponsorship is a marketing play. So they're the same because it's money you don't have to pay back, but they're a little bit different, and sometimes they come from different parts of the company.
I want to thank a couple of the people that are commenting. You have some fans. Stacy Marie said that Linda is fantastic. So a little shout out to Stacy. And Sandra actually said a little bit ago, remember, if a potential sponsor says no, don't take it personally, just move on. And is that good advice?
It's
Linda?
great advice. Sponsorship is just like any other sales. If somebody says no, you just say next.
Right.
So is there like a directory? I'll call it a directory of companies who do sponsorships, or you just have to figure this out on your own?
The best way to find your sponsors is with sponsor directories. And I have a sponsor directory. People can contact me for the sponsor directory that we have. If you go to LinkedIn, that person on LinkedIn is probably not the person who can greenlight a sponsorship. So the best way is to do directories.
Yeah.
Got it.
And what about, now, this is what I did, and I don't know if it was a bad practice or not. So tell me if I had maybe I could have. But I looked at events that when I was doing my live events and getting the sponsors, I looked at people that were doing similar things to me, and I saw who was sponsoring them. And then I called them up and said, hey, I mean, I figured they were already in that world. I mean, it wasn't a direct competitor, but it was somebody that was in the similar field as me. Is that an okay thing to do?
Oh, that is a great way to find your sponsors. Great way. And people say, well, like, let's say what I was doing for years was that, women's business event. So I looked at other women's business events and say, okay, here's the sponsors. Here's who I'll contact. And it's great because you don't have to educate them about the value of what you do. They're already playing in that space. And people say to me, well, Linda, don't they run out of budget and all that? No, don't worry about that. So that's a great way to find your sponsors.
We have another good question here from Stacy. So she wants to know, do you put together a presentation and maybe what do you include in there?
Okay. All right, Stacy, I'll tell you about the sponsor proposal. Remember, the most important but least understood document. So I'm going to tell you what goes into it. Take out a pen and paper if you can. There's a description of what you do there in the sponsor proposal. There are benefits. You have to have really compelling benefits or you will not get funded. You want to put your marketing plan in the sponsor proposal. How are you going to get the word out about what you do? Remember, it doesn't have to be an event. The celebrity chef Rachel Ray, she is a property and Nabisco is her sponsor. So a person could get sponsored. So put a description of what you do, your marketing plan, your benefits, your demographics. The demographics are your destiny in sponsorship. So write as much as you can about your demographics. And then lastly, here's how we help people do sponsor proposals in a way that nobody else does. And that is storytelling. You want to put either your story or the story of somebody that you have helped through the work that you do in your sponsor proposal, because people think, oh, well, I'm sending this to a big company and I'm going to impress them and put, statistics, facts, figures. It's boring. I put in my sponsor proposal that I was in the poverty trap, that I was in an abusive relationship. You want to get vulnerable and, not just put the pretty bio of your education and your accomplishments. So you really want some really good storytelling in there.
Do you mean, when you say storytelling, do you also mean like testimonials, also like how what we offer has changed others' lives, or?
Testimonials are a little bit different than storytelling. Yes, we do put testimonials in there. An optional thing you can put in your sponsor proposal is your advisory board. If you have an inner circle, and all of you ladies could be each other's advisory boards, that's a credibility piece for sponsors also.
It's like making a pitch deck for investors.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Are there any differences between the pitch deck and proposal? Not so
there
much.
are,
They're very similar. But
Well, there are, because this is all about marketing. And with sponsorship, you don't have to give a piece of equity away in your company. You don't have to pay back the loan with interest.
Right.
And this is coming not from an individual investor. This is basically marketing and branding a corporation. The definition of sponsorship is connecting a company to the people who can buy things. So if you know people who buy things, you could get sponsors.
But if I was looking for seed capital, a sponsorship might be a great way to go after it if I've got all those things that you have in your sponsor proposal, as opposed to beating the deck for seed money from other sources. Because it does have the benefits that you just talked about. Yeah.
It's a great way to get seed capital, is how I got seed capital for my business.
yeah.
Stacy's on fire today. She has another question. Is it best to have 3 packages to have perspective to choose from? If not, how many packages do you offer?
Okay, thank you, Stacy. It's one proposal, but then when you get to the sponsor fees and pricing, you want to put a menu there. So when you go to a restaurant, you order the appetizer, then you pay a little bit more for the entree, then you pay a little bit more for the dessert course. That's what you want to do with your sponsor packages. It starts out at one level, and then you get more benefits at the next level of investment, and then more at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So back
And you
to
said to start out with a particular price, like you started out with 10,000. You don't go lower than that at all. You start at 10.
I start at 10 because, first of all, I like the $10,000 level, because sometimes in a company, it's just one person that makes the decision. They don't have to go to committee. They don't have to consult with a team to make that kind of investment. So I like starting at 10,000. Now, if the sponsor says, well, we can't afford 10,000, but we can afford 7,500, that's a personal decision if you want to accept that particular offer. But I've seen sponsor proposals that ask for $150. Now, this is going to hurt you. Charging too low will absolutely hurt you in the world of sponsorship, because sponsorship is a team sport. And, like I said, they have to get their team involved a lot. So is it worth their time if you're charging $150? It's not worth their time. And you're telling them you have nothing of value. So you've got to declare your value at the outset of that sponsor relationship.
So it's a mindset as well. And people are used to asking that much money for that big amount of money. And so the 10,000 level, what would be in that 10,000 level, you think?
The 10,000 level, I'm generalizing. I usually like to work individually on it. But usually the $10,000 level is what we call the visibility benefits level. That is signage. That is, a logo on a website. That is inclusion maybe in a social media campaign. Sometimes it's an exhibitor booth. And even with virtual events, you could do exhibitor booths. So those kind of things go in the $10,000 level.
So I think what I'm hearing you say that if I'm a large corporation, I have 2 budgets. I'll call it 2 budgets. I have one for traditional advertising. I'll call it advertising. And there's another budget that perhaps is for sponsorship. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Because when I do advertising and I put a rate card in front of them, they can also pay based upon what you're suggesting. If I have a show here and I have a show that goes on YouTube, you could also pay for different, I'll call them channels in the world of virtual that your event gets distributed to. Are we seeing that happening in the world of virtual?
Yes, but I want to talk about the difference between advertising and sponsorship. Traditional advertising, it's increasing every year, but the ad spend, the spend on sponsorship is increasing much more than the ad spend on traditional advertising. So let's talk about traditional advertising. Like my husband and I watch Dancing with the Stars. So if you want to put an ad on Dancing with the Stars, you're reaching everybody from 9 years old to 90 years old. You have to keep repeating that ad. With sponsorship, it's much less cost for the company. And like I said, it's those year-round benefits. And also sponsorship includes goodwill and brand building.
Yes.
And all those things year long. I talked somebody who wanted to exhibit for $500 at my conference into a $10,000 sponsorship. And this is how I did it. I said, well, do you want to just rent airspace for a half a day? Or do you want us to promote you all year long? And, no brainer, right?
And the audience is much more targeted. If you've shown them who's going to be there, then they're actually just getting that little niche, which is who they want to reach in the first place, as opposed to like the TV show with the wide age range and all of that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, very, very cool. Checking for more questions.
This is a lot to take in. This is so great.
Yeah, that's
This
so
is awesome.
amazing.
I know. You were mentioning budgets, and I know that when it comes to companies wanting to partner, or somehow align with other businesses, that idea of minority and women-owned may be beneficial. Is there anything that's beneficial when you are a minority or women-owned business when you're going out to get sponsors?
I think so. I really do, because there's a lot of economic power that is growing in the diversity market and in the women's market. When I did my research, I found women are starting businesses at twice the rate of men. Women make or influence over 85% of the purchasing decisions in America. That is how I got my first sponsors, because I had no experience, but I told them the enormity of the market. And then that's why they bought in. Now let's talk about diversity, because that's very much in the national conversation now.
Mm-hmm.
If you have diversity in your audience, let your sponsors know that.
Yes.
The world of, you said you work with influencers now. So can you just touch on that? With influencers, they're always looking for brand deals and sponsorships. How do you help them, or best go about, helping them achieve that?
Sure. Well, influencers are people like you who have a show, people who do podcasts, people who do blogging, people who have a YouTube channel. And most of them, unfortunately, go about sponsorship in the wrong way, because they say, well, I'll sell you some 30-second and some 60-second commercials. And that's all they want to sell them. And then it becomes all about your numbers. And unless you have these ginormous numbers of viewers and listeners, that's really not going to be successful. Or they say, well, I'll sell you X number of episodes. Sell them the whole year's worth of benefits, not just those 30 and 60-second commercials. Sell them on the whole brand that you've created.
So for example, in YouTube, we have descriptions under our shows. So maybe they can be, have a permanent spot for the year in our descriptions and things like that.
Mm-hmm. You could do intro videos. You could do outro videos. You could put a slide that says sponsored by at the end of the show. And by the way, call it a show. Don't call it a podcast. It just frames it in a lot bigger way. Call yourself a media company rather than just a podcaster.
Yeah.
And so it seems like to me that I know what I'd like to know. Your sponsor directory, is that available? How would somebody get my ears? Okay, I need that.
What do you got for us, Linda?
Yeah,
Perfect segue. What do you got for us?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you how you can get in touch with me, and I can tell you about the sponsor directory, and if it's appropriate for you, if sponsors are right for you. So go to the website successwithsponsors.com. Now, there's a few things I have for you at successwithsponsors.com. One of them is a gift, which is the #1 secret to getting sponsors. That's my gift. Cool. Another one that I have is a sponsor strategy session, a one-on-one with me. And when we do sponsor strategy sessions, oh my God, it's magic. There is such amazing brainstorming that happens. I tell you how to get money in ways you never, ever thought possible, so you can fund all those dreams that you have.
Nice.
Ask Margie, if you're still here, our little behind the scenes producer, please put that. There she goes. She just put it in the comments. Good. All right.
That sounds like an awesome gift. So
I knew
Oh my
she
God.
would.
I have so many questions, but we have to have you back on. This is
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Definitely.
what I told you. I warned you, Linda, in the beginning. Like,
Yes.
now she's
Well,
going to have to go
I-
take a nap.
Yeah, I
And
think
remember,
diversity. Yeah.
I
think
actually
it's-
spoke.
yeah.
I actually spoke with Linda on the phone when it was a year and a half ago, and I was doing my first CEO Business Summit. And you said, "When is it?" "Oh, in a couple weeks." Yeah. I still remember it. Says, "Yeah, that's a little too short notice for me to help you, but good luck."
Yeah, we're
didn't feel like
we're
that,
getting
but
requests to have you
actually
back
told
on.
me that it was so short notice. Yeah, but you were so willing to help and so excited to speak with you on the phone. It was exciting. It really was.
Thank you
But,
so much for being here, Linda. We really appreciate it. We've already got comments that are saying have to have you back on. So we'll be reaching back out to you again in our next season, most likely, so that we can get everybody feeling like they can do more than what they think is possible. And that's what sponsorship means to me. And I have you to thank for that eye-opening knowledge, that wisdom. So thank you so much for being here. Again, we're gonna post in the comments. As you can see, her sponsor, concierge.com, sponsored training, #1 secret for getting corporate sponsors. She's got all kinds of info in there that Margie's putting up for you. So thank you so much. And we will see you again. Have an awesome week. And thanks for your wisdom.
Great to be here.
thank you, Linda.
Okay, bye, ladies.
Bye.
Ooh, I think we
Wow.
need a session. The Queens need a sponsorship.
Yes.
I'm
So
saying
is your
the
brain
exact-
just,
my
is your brain
brain
just
was
going?
just rolling.
Right.
Yes.
Tammy, can you put her that what was it? The success with sponsors.com. Can you put that in a banner?
Yes,
real quick
let me
so
grab
people
that.
can see that? That would be great. Yeah.
That
Because
would be
we
awesome.
really want people to take advantage of this. I mean, she is
It is.
amazing. She's been doing it for so long.
She
Is that
has.
where they would find the link to the strategy session with her also? Or is that something
Yes.
different?
I believe so. She
Okay.
said that. Yes,
Okay,
I
got it.
believe so. And so if you have the opportunity to take time with Linda, I think, Sahela, that it just opens up your mind to possibilities that will get you feeling like you can actually accomplish so much more than what you think you currently can.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it's just amazing.
Oh, thank
and a
you.
big thank you to our producer, Margie, for hanging in with all the questions today in the comments. That's so awesome. That's so
Yes,
good.
I highly recommend take up her offer and talk with her, because when you're on the phone with her, oh my goodness, I mean, she's a whiz at everything, and she can
is.
help you. She could help you get those sponsors.
Yeah. And
Sounds
she
like
makes it seem
better
like
than
it's so easy.
yes. Sounds better than a GoFundMe program.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, right. Right.
Actually, yes. And you'll feel a lot more in control
Oh yeah.
than a GoFundMe. GoFundMe
Yeah.
to me seems like nail biting and checking back every 5 minutes. It's worse than trying to buy something on eBay. We're like, do I have it? Do you remember that? Does anybody still do eBay these days? But I want to share our quote. Can we share our quote for
Yes,
this week?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Are we doing April 1?
We're going to finish we're at the end. We're
Okay,
going to
got
do our quote. Yeah.
Sorry,
So
sorry.
let's talk about our quote for the week. Okay. So this comes from Billy Monger, and Billy Monger is a race car driver who had an accident. He actually races with no legs. So he's doing amazing things for people with disabilities and really becoming so well known. He's across the pond. He's over in the UK. But I found this quote because he said, "It is weird because a lot of people don't realize I would struggle for budget. There are moments with people I work with when they sit there and think, what have we got to do to make people realize that if Billy doesn't get sponsorship, he won't be racing?" So even though he has fans, the reality is when we're watching, I mean, we love NASCAR here in the US, right? We're watching these things and you start to realize we're looking at sponsors all the time. That's a very obvious, representation of it, but there's no reason that we should hesitate to ask as well.
I agree. Yep. That was a great quote. And so true.
It is true. So, and leave in the comments, you guys, if this has inspired you to start to think bigger, and please reach out to Linda. Let us know what you think of the show. Please don't forget, share, subscribe, like all those wonderful things. We love to hear from you, and we check back to see what you've commented, even once we're not live. So with that, I wanted to invite you to join us next week. It's a very special week because we're going to be in Vegas with Dua Lipa. Yes. Okay, I'm just kidding. We're not. It's April. It's April Fool's Day. But we are going to have a very lighthearted and very fun show. And we have a very special guest for next week. So if you want to lighten things up a little bit, have a little fun, please join us next week for our special April Fool's show. And that's for real. For now, we're out.
Wait, one last thing. Stacy deserves a little gift. We forgot her giveaway. And guess what? Our guest Linda today actually left us with an incredible giveaway. She is giving away corporate sponsorship in 3 easy steps. Let's see if I can get it on the screen. I can show you.
Excellent.
So Stacy Marie, you are the clear winner today. So we're going to get that over to you. So make sure that you just message us with your contact info and we'll make sure you get that. But thanks so much for being engaging. Everyone who engaged today, we love it.
So once again, join us next week when we're in Vegas with Dua Lipa. Just kidding. April Fools. We'll see you next week. We do have a very funny and lighthearted show. So join us and we look forward to seeing you there. For now, we're out.
Happy Thursday. Wow.
Oh, dear.